Hey guys, welcome to the Smart Venture Podcast. In each episode, we're going to have conversations with some of the top investors, superstar founders, as well as well-known tech company executives in Silicon Valley. We'll have a coffee chat with them to learn their way of thinking and actionable tips on how they build or invest in a successful company. Before we start our show today, I want to make sure the listener, aka you, understand that everything a person say on the podcast only reflects hers or his own opinion, not the show or the company they work at. Our guest today is the founder of a global fashion brand named after herself, Rebecca Minkoff. The brand has retail stores in New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Hong Kong, Tokyo, and Korea, and is distributed over 900 stores worldwide. Beyond fashion, she hosts the Superwomen podcast with Rebecca Minkoff, with guests like Jessica Alba and many other successful women. She is the founder of the Female Founder Collective, where she helps support women in business and leadership. She also has a new book coming out called Fearless: The New Rules for Unlocking Creativity, Courage, and Success. Her name is Rebecca Minkoff. Welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You grew up in San Diego and Florida, and I believe your parents were doctors and nurses. It seems like they were in more of a traditional business. Tell us more about where does the entrepreneurial spirit come from?
I think that it came from the fact that my parents were always about making us earn everything we wanted. They very much came from that background, and so they wanted to instill in us the power of being able to figure things out for yourself. So our whole childhood was sort of met with that as far as when we wanted something, if we wanted to go somewhere, or any type of reward had to be earned, and it was strictly kept in. So I guess that fostered the idea that if I did want something, I'd have to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I know your brother joined your company later on. Was everyone in your family entrepreneurial, or you were the first founder in the house?
No, my brother started his own software company before he decided to partner up with me. He also, prior to that, started my parents' actually health and wellness center that's still alive to this day, where my dad works. So he started that with my parents. My mom started several businesses. So even though she was a nurse by trade, she stopped working in the hospital, prior to me being born, and had 3 or 4 companies as I was growing up. And then my dad was working in the emergency room and as a pediatrician, but then also transitioned probably at least like 25 years ago to have his own wellness center. So I guess we've all got the spirit.
Yeah, I love that spirit. I know that you wouldn't encourage your kids to go to college. I think it's really bold. Curious, why do you think college is not necessary? How do you envision them to educate themselves then? If they're not going to college, what should their life look like?
Yeah, so none of my brothers and I went to college. I firmly believe that if you need to be a doctor or a lawyer or a scientist or a biologist, you should definitely go to college. But if you're one of those people that doesn't know what you want to do in life, or you think that you want to go work somewhere, I think those skills can be acquired outside of college. I find that I meet so many people who basically tell me they partied in college, and it was just a delay of 4 more years of them not hitting the ground running. And so if you have the ability to network and connect, and you have certain skills that are desired. For instance, if you want to be a coder or a web programmer, you can go to school for 3 months, same as beauty school, and come out of there making, 6 figures versus wasting 4 years taking on subjects that might not be what you actually need to know. So I pretty much told my kids they're not going to college, and we want to start working on what they're interested in now. Doesn't mean that's what they have to do, but at least by the time they are 18 and are ready to start working, they will have some of those skills already acquired and not waiting for those 4 years to happen.
That's a cool plan. I think a lot of people go to college because of the cohort learning experience. During that time, people make friends so they can tap into the alumni network down the line. You started working networking when you were really young. You built up a really great relationship with your former boss. How did you build this network in fashion for yourself? Who is on your personal board of advisors when it comes to career decisions?
So I think something, I've built my network over the last 20 years. It started with one fashion editor who I sent flowers to and said, if you ever have time to teach me about the business, I'm all ears. And she took me to every party she ever went to and introduced me to anyone she ever knew, which was invaluable at the time. I also was able to see what was happening on the fashion calendar, get myself invited to those events or crash them, meet people there, and not be scared to hand out my business cards. I think that obviously now one does not need to hand out a business card, but if you have an opportunity to meet people and be in front of someone, what's your pitch? What's your elevator pitch, I guess is the term, to get that person to be excited about what you do, get intoxicated with your passion about what you do, and hopefully be someone that can help you. So that can be scary to a lot of people. So I often recommend practicing with your friends, what you're going to say, how you're going to say it. These days there's so many ways that people are accessible that they weren't when I started. So you can go into a clubhouse, you can be in the same room as some of the people you've been wanting to reach out to forever. There's, other platforms that have sort of dismantled the idea that everyone's behind a velvet rope, and take advantage of that while you can.
Yeah, totally. When you started your own brand, your brother's friend's wife were wearing your t-shirt on The Tonight Show, which gave your brand some strong exposure. You have the ability to put yourself out there, get the product into the right hands. As you mentioned, now we have a lot of social media channels where you can reach out to influencers, but also it comes with a lot of competitions. If you're starting your business today, what is today's equivalent of getting your product to the celebrity and have them wear it on a top show?
So I think now, because accessibility is everywhere, it's really hard to sort of have happen what happened. There were times where I was on the cover of a magazine, not me, but my product, and we would sell hundreds of thousands of units of that one style, or Jenna Elfman on Jay Leno, or wearing the morning after bag, like catapulted me, or certain celebrities. I think the only people that can do that now is like Meghan Markle or Kate Middleton, women that have these fan bases that want everything these women have. But I think it's more of a spread it far and wide in order to keep getting awareness from these people that now follow everybody. There's just too many people now that are all talented and creative putting out content, and there's too many almost pathways to that content. So I think it's, if you can get the queen and her people, you're good.
The queen and her people.
But I also think it's, once you get them, you have to sustain it. She'll give you that hit. And then it's like, how many other micro influencers do you have? How many other creators on YouTube or Clubhouse, like whatever it is, where are you also getting that additional lift that sustains the business?
Yeah, that's such a great point. Sustaining the hype is also really important. I feel like it's the same starting a company. Besides being able to start the business, you also have to maintain the passion and the drive when shit hit the fan. I feel like you are unstoppable. You're actively testing out new media channels. You're on TikTok, YouTube, podcasts, Clubhouse, and you adapt the new technology really fast, like smart mirror in your store. How do you build up this mentality?
I think that that passion takes different forms during different parts of one's career. So in the beginning, you have nothing to lose. So why not keep going? Why not pursue it? Because there's really nothing to fall back on. As I've evolved as an entrepreneur, I now have 25, team members that I got to keep pursuing because I employ them. And their families. Now I have 3 kids that I have to pay for. So I better be passionate because I got to put food on the table every night and pay for all their whatever they want to do. So I think that sometimes you can have it be, I have nothing to lose. Now I have everything to lose. And so in addition to that, I also think it's a combination of, the sickness, if you will, of the entrepreneur. Nothing is ever enough. And just when you think it's going to be good when you achieve X, it's actually the journey that is the pleasurable part. Once you get there, you're like, okay, cool. Now what? And so I think you're constantly just trying to push yourself because that is the game. The game isn't I'm rich and famous. It's this whole journey that you get to go on. And, the times you thought you wouldn't make it, or you're going to go out of business, or something bad was going to happen, and then you got through that. That's those feelings. If anyone has been an entrepreneur or faced that failure, when you get through that, that's the pay.
Yeah. When you started your business, you were making t-shirt and bag. You sent your product to an actress to have them wear it on the show, but it didn't get there on time. You were hustling. Now you own a global fashion brand. The business has changed a lot. What are some skills that get you to what it is today? Assuming at the beginning it's a design skill, that may be business skill. What is one skill that you're constantly trying to get better at?
Definitely the business side of things, the marketing side. I will say that for the first few years, I just wanted to be alone in my silo designing. And I had to come out of my cocoon and really understand how business works, how marketing works, how, the nitty gritty of logistics, all that not sexy stuff. Get good at that, because you can't just be a designer anymore. You can't just not know anything about marketing. Essentially designers are now media companies. At least that's how I believe they are positioning themselves, if they're setting themselves up for the future, because people want access to all types of content, not just the designs, but what was the behind the scenes of that? How did you come up with that idea? What was the inspiration? They want all this content. And so you have to get good at knowing the business of fashion outside of just sketching and fabric.
Absolutely. You mentioned such a good point. A brand is becoming a media company. All branding nowadays are depending on what content you put on social media. I feel like it's also true for VC and the startup industry. Podcasting, newsletter, tweeting are almost essential for the VC firms. Everyone's really fighting for more eyeballs. If you start a business today, who would be your first hire compared to starting a business back in time?
I think that first hire is critical. Today, I would hire someone on the technology side. Like if I was launching a new company, I would hire someone who knew how to code, who knew how to build a website, who knew how to sort of build your basic foundation. Because I can do the social, I can do the design, I can do the sourcing, I can do the logistics, I can do the shipping, but I'm not good with web design or graphics. So someone who was really good at that stuff. And then from there, I would start hiring what jobs I don't want to do. I don't want to do logistics. So that would be my next hire. Then I don't want to, have to do much with the finances. So I think that, hire for first your baseline, so you can get out of the weeds and function, and then hire for what you're terrible at. That's my advice.
I think hiring where you're terrible at can come with some challenges. If you're not an expert, how do you figure out who is good in the space? Besides looking at people's LinkedIn profile?
I would interview a lot of people. Obviously, with everything being remote work, location doesn't totally matter anymore. So the pool of talent that you're able to hire is a lot broader and potentially better. You can also keep your costs low. When we used to just have to hire everyone based in New York City, which is one of the most expensive cities in the world. Thus, the salaries are higher. But if you're just starting out and now that location isn't a factor, you could find someone in another location who's just as talented that you might be able to pay a quarter of that amount. And so I think that, yes, you can look on LinkedIn, but you should definitely call them, do your diligence, interview them, give them projects. We give every single one of our designers or graphic designers projects so that we know that what they're thinking and how their mind works is going to fit within our organization.
Yeah, when it comes to getting the best talents, a great hire may get multiple job offers. How do you attract them to work for you?
So I think that has to, sorry, there's a dog and I can't do anything about it.
No, it's totally fine. Thank you.
So I think when it comes to hiring people and getting multiple offers, there has to be a differentiator on why that person would come to you. So maybe you can't give them the same salary that they're getting. Can you give them more days off? Can you give them more flexibility? Can you give them a small chance or pathway to earning equity within the company? Do their mission and values align with your mission and values? I think that you can usually put together a cohesive package. I mean, unless the numbers are, you're going to pay 50 grand and they're getting 200 grand. I don't know anyone that would take that deal. But I think that if, you're coming close within, explore all the other things that are valuable to people that might be something they want instead.
Speaking of hiring, you started your brand by creating t-shirts in your apartment. How long did it took you from making the t-shirts in your room to hire the first person? Who was your first hire?
So the first person who worked for me was actually my intern. Her brother worked for my brother at his other company, and she was hardworking, and I couldn't do it all. I needed to be in the garment center, buying leather, buying zippers, buying lining, replying to emails, packing orders. And so it was literally a divide and conquer. So each day I'd be like, all right, I'm going to do this. You're going to do this. And then eventually when we had enough money, we paid her. After that, the next hire was someone who could help us with the graphic design. Again, not my skill set. And so we hired a girl that had just moved to New York. She was excited to work for an independent brand that had a good press following, and good editorial support. And so, again, I kept hiring like, okay, good. I can't do graphic design. Great. I can't do production. Awesome. Should I be in the back designing all day, or should I also be forward facing? Great. Hire a designer. And so we just really started looking at the holes within the organization. And that was kind of the biggest hole got filled fast.
Yeah.
The biggest hole got filled first.
Yeah, I like that you're taking it slow, hiring the roles that you actually need. Make sure you have enough money to spend, then hire more people for the sake of it. I definitely see startups mindlessly hired a bunch of people right after they raise money. I like that you're being frugal, making sure the core business work before expanding the team.
I think it's a different mentality. I think when you work at a startup and you're being pumped with hundreds of millions of dollars or even tens of millions of dollars, your mentality is never going to be that of scrappy. We didn't have that opportunity, nor did that exist at the time. It just wasn't what people did when they were starting out their companies. And so we approached it from, we have no money, we have to be scrappy. But I do think that mentality in a startup is inherently valuable. You're going to burn through a lot less cash. You're going to make smarter hires and based on people's true ability to build a company, which is really fucking hard. And I think if you can keep that mentality, when stuff gets hard, you can go right back into that scrappy entrepreneurial thing that if you never had to start with that, you can panic.
When the pandemic hit, you had to quickly adjust the size of your team. You had to start doing a lot of the groundwork yourself. You shoot your bag in your backyard. It's really admirable that you could roll up your sleeve, do anything that needed to make the business successful. When it comes to scaling the business, at the beginning, you were doing everything on your own. Later on, you borrowed money from your brother. At what point did you think you were onto something?
So I think that when I launched the t-shirt and I could see that it was in magazines over and over again and I was getting orders nonstop, that felt like, okay, there's a business here. Did not mean I was making a lot of money. Let's not glorify it. I could barely pay my rent. When I had launched the bag, when you saw the 12 units sell out and then they reordered 75, and then you could see that each time I was shipping orders, the bags were selling. So then you start to go, okay, there's something here. It was a long time before I was making money. And when I say that, there's the business being profitable, which we're now profitable 15 years later. But there's also, for the first, 3 or 4 years, my salary was $23,000 a year. It was literally, what's my rent and how little food can I eat? And that was what we based it on, because everything else had to go back into the business. And then for many years, we were okay to not make money as a company because it was the trend to get big, grow big at all costs. Doesn't matter how you get there. You'll be acquired and then suddenly you'll just be flush with money. I'll never forget when that conversation shifted and it was like, oh no, we want businesses to be profitable. So we had to go back and re-engineer our entire business because the whole mindset would be like, just who cares about making money? We're going for growth. And that is troublesome and still happens to this day. And some companies are caught with their pants down, as ours was. And it takes a lot of work to then re-engineer how you're going to go about getting growth, but profitably.
For sure. At the beginning, you were going through the product phase, then it's a growth phase. What were the different phases your company have went through?
I mean, it's gone through 100 phases. It's gone through startup, growth, crazy growth, grow at all costs. Oh shit, this doesn't work. Shrink a little bit, stabilize, become irrelevant, gain relevancy again. then a pandemic happens, and then you have to reinvent yourself and your entire company. So it's constant reinvention. It's constant evolution. And you have to know that there's going to be these ups and downs that go like this. That's just part of the business. You just hope that the general trajectory of this up and down is at an angle that's going up.
Yeah, when the pandemic hit, you really took quick actions to make smart decisions for your business. As a designer turned business owner, how do you educate yourself when it comes to spreadsheet and making smart business moves?
I think you have to be scrappy. You have to be creative. You have to be persistent. There's an invitation at every turn to give up and just, all right, we could have used this pandemic as a great cover to go out of business and start something new, but we decided to fight. We decided our team was worth it. The mission of the company was worth it. We owed it to ourselves, who've been doing this for 15 years, to keep going. And so you have to have that long-term mindset, and that this is larger than just, this is hard, I'll do it another day.
You started Female Founder Collective to support female founders. You have your own podcast, your fashion brand. I don't see many people start different businesses in different sectors very successfully that often. How does all these different businesses come together? What is the business strategy behind it?
There isn't a business strategy. I think it was, in the time that I wanted to start the collective back in 2018, there was, the endless echo chamber of pay disparity, of inequality in the workplace, of women not getting the funding that they deserve. And it wasn't getting better by all of us talking about it. So I thought there had to be something that would allow the consumer to easily identify and support women-owned businesses. So came up with this symbol. And then I thought that there should be a community of women who can give you their trials, tribulations, roadblocks, failures, their black book of resources that could help each other out. So it was started with that, and then brought in a co-founder to really help lead the education part of this. We didn't all go to college. How do you bridge that education gap? And so how do you get the best in the business teaching you all of the things you didn't know you needed to know to go into business without you don't have time to go back to school. You might not want to go to school. And so how do you get these incredible wealth of resources? So we launched the collective in 2018. We have around 10,000 members. The seal's on over 3 million products. And really the goal is to make sure that that gap gets smaller, whether it's more women-owned businesses succeeding, more founders hiring more women, paying them what they deserve and more, and also having a community that has your back, that you can learn from your peers, you can learn from similar size and stage of companies, and we can be a lot stronger for it. There's enough pie for everybody. And so how do we make sure that we set the table and make sure that you have all the ingredients to make the best one?
Totally. It sounds like absolutely amazing resources. You have really wonderful guests on your podcast, like last week was Jessica Alba. You're not only a great designer and business owner, but also you really build a brand outside of fashion for yourself. You're super connected. What are some actions you take to keep building your network and overall presence?
So I think that the power of networking has always been something, as I alluded to earlier in the podcast, that I knew was important. I had the one friend introduce me to all her people. I came home and counted business cards like they were cash, because it was each opportunity was a new person that could help me in my business, that could get me to the next level. So as I've been in this industry for 15 years, relationships are something I've built. This isn't a transactional idea. I think some people can view it as, the negative connotation of social climbing. But when you have a back and forth, meaningful relationship with someone, and it's not about just what the person can give you, it's about what you could also do for them. That's where the true value is. So if you look at sort of a series of concentric circles, it was just me as designer. And then I reached a point where I was like, I'm a mother. I have more dimensions than this. Oh, this is not right in the workplace that mothers are treated this way, or that they have these challenges. I want to do something about that. Great. Now I have a platform that people can notice me on. How could I use that platform to elevate women's voices or elevate women's communities? So as you become more well-known, have the longevity, have more of a team to be able to support these endeavors, you can keep growing your sphere of influence wider and wider. And so it's not a legacy of she's known as the crossbog. It's not just a legacy of she's known as the crossbody bag lady, but oh, look at all the communities that were helped, or the women that were supported, or the gender pay gap got less. And so I think I'm trying to make I guess my mark be bigger than just a bag.
Absolutely. You're definitely someone really influential in the fashion industry and business in general. What are some things you're actively doing that people like me who is in our 20s, or some of us who work at a 9-to-5 job, what are some actions that we could all take to build a meaningful project, or even know what initiatives to start?
I think that not everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur. I think if you're miserable in your job, you should first ask yourself, what do you want to do? What makes you happy? What are you passionate about? And does this job give you that? Or do you need to switch departments? Not everyone, everyone shouldn't think, oh, I'm miserable, I'm going to go start my own company, because it's easy to say that. It is not as easy to do that. So first address what's making you miserable. Is it a coworker? Is it a toxic workplace? That could easily be handled by just switching jobs, not just switching jobs. I know that's, again, easier said than done, but first have a deep look inside and then figure out what you can do to change your situation. If at the end of the day, you're like, the entrepreneur in me is dying to come out, I need to do this, use your day job as a source of income while you figure out what you want to do, how you're going to monetize it, get your product launched so that you have a cushion. I always say have a year's worth of cushion that you can pay your bills, and you're not suddenly like, that didn't work, because it's going to take at least a year to get up and running. But first, make sure that what you're running from isn't something that's going to haunt you when you leave and start either your new job or your new company.
For sure. We should all plan things thoroughly, being responsible for our own life before rushing into entrepreneurship. In terms of creating a profitable business, you mentioned at the beginning you weren't looking at the spreadsheet. If you're doing it again, what would you do differently?
I think the two most important things that I would do differently is we built our business with a lot of wholesale relationships in mind, and we let them almost be the arbiters of how we did business. And I would have launched direct to consumer a lot more quickly, a lot earlier. While we were early to it, there were tons of brands that were like 2 or 3 years in front of us. And I would have then changed the power dynamic. So by having our own direct-to-consumer company 2 years before it started, it really started ramping up, we just would have been a lot more able to negotiate from a position of power with our department stores. And we wouldn't be worried that if they canceled their orders like they all did in March of last year, that would be left holding an empty bag. So I think I would have done that differently, and I would have just gotten more business savvy earlier. I think, again, for a long time, I wanted to hide in the design room and, be the designer in her atelier. And I would have just made a lot more different business decisions had I had the intelligence I have now about how a business is run.
Yeah, I feel you. Making good product decisions can be really different than making good business judgments. How do you pick up the business skills after a while?
Well, you make enough failures that you learn a lot of lessons, and then you start reading. I made it a point to read every non-fashion magazine or publication I could get my hands on just so I could understand the business. So on all my travels, because I used to travel a ton, instead of grabbing Vogue, grab Inc., grab Fast Company, grab Forbes, read TechCrunch, read Mashable, like get immersed in the business side of things, because it'll only help you later.
I love that you're really taking actions quickly. What do you think was the biggest challenge while running your business?
There isn't one. They're all shitty and they're all terrible. Anything from, Kate Spade hardware being put on my bags to leather shipping that was covered with sort of a wax that made it look like mold was growing on the leather, to our bank, saying, good luck, we're no longer funding you, to, investors that had drag rights that were just going to sell the company for whatever they invested plus $1 and give us nothing. And so there have all been different times throughout the business where you're like, I can't make this shit up. And I actually have a newsletter because of it on LinkedIn called You Can't Make This Shit Up, because you can't. You're just like, what? That happened? I never would have thought that that could have happened to me.
Wow, that's insane. Oh, these challenges sounds awful. I would hate someone put another company's logo on my product, or my investors trying to sell their share plus $1. At that point, who do you ask for help? Do you have a business mentor, or do you normally just talk to your brother?
I don't really believe in mentors, but I think when you can talk to someone, like, these situations present themselves, and obviously he's my co-founder and we're going to have these conversations, but I think bringing in other individuals who are good at strategy, are good at managing huge issues are good. I also think I've been able to lean on a network of female founders that I've made as friends over the last few years. And so being able to be like, hey, Katya, what do I do about this? Or my brother, or like these trusted advisors that have been in the business. Never ask your best friend for advice unless they know your business cold. Never complain to your best friend unless they know your business cold. But lean on the people that have been through similar things, because I guarantee you tons of people in this situation have had very similar experiences and can often be great sources of help.
Yeah, that's such a good advice. Don't ask your best friend for business decisions, but ask someone who actually been there, done that. I feel like you and your brand are really innovative. Last year, Smart Mirror became really popular, but I believe you guys had Smart Mirror in your store years ago. I feel like you're leading the trend. What are some technologies that you're excited about, you feel like could be interesting for your store or the fashion industry in general?
Well, we had QR codes 2 or 3 years ago. We launched a big campaign about them. If you scanned the inside of the QR code that was in every bag, it would unlock rewards, experiences, discounts. And it was met with a solid like, huh? Who's going to do that? Now QR codes, are part of our daily lives. Scarily enough, I'm assuming in the near future, you'll have to be scanned with your QR code to go somewhere. And so I think that now people are ready for that. So I think we'd want to bring back that idea within our handbags. We definitely feel that our stores are opportunities for, again, 360 media opportunities. So if I'm partnering with a brand, how do they show up in my store? How do they show up to the community there? Maybe it's a founder talk. Are they on my podcast? Are they on my Instagram? Are they part of our newsletter? So how do you take the store as an extension of the world and make sure that when the customer comes in, it's not about the sales that transact that day, but it's about the transaction that takes place with the customer over a 360 point of view.
Yeah. How are you creating that experience for the consumer?
Well, our stores are closed right now, so we're not creating that experience at all.
Well, I feel like you're on every social media. It's pretty much 360 for the consumer. It takes a lot of work and you're running it so effectively. Speaking of technology and innovation, do you use data to decide what kind of bag you will be designing, or all the creative parts are still from purely an artistic standpoint?
You can't live without data. You'd be stupid to not have data. So I think that we definitely have the art and the science balanced. Data would tell us only to sell crossbodies at $195 and sweatshirts. Well, we're a brand, so we're going to make an aspirational bag at $348. We know a lot less people can buy it, but it's that romance. We're going to have a fashion show that gets people excited. All of that romance up here makes the sales. And then you say, okay, good. The meat and potatoes are humming. How do I keep creating that romance, that sexier side of things? So it's definitely a balance. And if you only listen to data, you'll get boring to the customer real fast. So I definitely think we're constantly trying to toggle between both. And hopefully if you like our brand, we've achieved it.
Yeah, your brand is a global brand. In terms of launching products in different countries, do you have different launch strategies that tailor to different cultures?
We definitely have somewhat of a different product offering. In some places, I don't like, for instance, in China, I don't own my trademark in apparel, so we can't have clothing in China. And they carry our bags. Or, I know in Japan, any bag we sell there, they want a zippered enclosure. So nothing cannot have a zipper. So it's different. It's more about different product offerings than a sales strategy, if that makes sense.
Wow, that's so interesting. I definitely feel like it's smart to have different product offerings based on the fashion and culture in different countries. What does it look like 10 years from now for Rebecca Minkoff? How do you envision your brand?
So I think that we have a number of categories that we haven't launched yet, which we would love to see launched in the next 5-10 years. So currently we have watches, eyewear, jewelry, sunglasses, belts, cold weather, clothing, shoes, and bags. So we're about to launch home this summer. We're about to launch loungewear, more formal loungewear. I think, we want to relaunch kids. We launched kids right before the pandemic hit. And then it was like, we're not going to focus on kids right now. So hopefully relaunch that. We have perfume, but we want to add, beauty to the equation. So we really want to round out all the categories of the brand and continue to fulfill, what a woman wants, making her feel optimistic, makes her feel confident, and be that brand. And then I wrote a book. It comes out in June 15th. Mm-hmm. You should pre-order it now if you're listening on Amazon. But I think that if that book does well and that helps women, it's really based on 21 rules that I've come up with that have helped me achieve success. And so if that does well, then I'll be writing more books to help hopefully support more women.
Yeah, I'm so excited about your book. I already pre-ordered it. As a founder, I really look up to you. Curious, who do you look up to as a designer?
Top designers?
Yeah.
I think that Alexander McQueen as an artist, as a creator, was incredibly innovative and ahead of his time. I think that Karl Lagerfeld at Chanel, neither of these have an aesthetic that I like personally, but I respect them from a designer point of view. I think if you read Coco Chanel's autobiography, she was an incredibly insightful and inspiring woman at a time when women were definitely not even close to being equal. And I think that, modern day designers, like I love Rachel Comey, I love Isabel Marant, I love, who else do I love?
Your own brand. I really love your brand. So
yeah. That's a good list, I think.
Yeah. Who do you think is like a business person that you really admire?
Well, I just interviewed Jessica Alba on my podcast. I definitely admire her. I definitely admire Michelle Cordero Grant, the founder of Lively. I admire Katia Bouchamp, the founder of Birchbox. Those are just a few. Combining
design and business, what company do you think is the most innovative company?
I think Nike is an incredibly innovative company with whether it's traditional values or their marketing campaigns, the people that they work with. I think Levi's is an incredibly inspiring company. Also Kith.
Totally. I love Nike and Levi's. For the listeners who wants to upgrade their style game, where should they look to get inspirations?
Well, you should definitely go to my YouTube channel because I talk to you all about closet essentials. So I talk about the fact that you need a great leather jacket, a great, statement blouse, a cozy, fun Zoom-worthy sweatshirt. So you can check it out there, all my style tips.
Yeah, I love that you're in all the videos yourself. It's super refreshing. For founders who aspire to create a brand or a business like you did, where's the best place to get inspirations?
I'm trying to be everywhere on every channel. So you can follow me on Instagram. You can listen to my podcast, Superwomen. You can read my LinkedIn articles. You can go on my YouTube channel. You can listen to me popping into Clubhouse. You can read and buy the book. I guess that would be my thoughts.
Awesome. We're at the last part of our interview. I have a mini fire round for you. First question, what's your favorite book?
I don't have a favorite book. I like all the books that I read. So I don't have like a standout.
Who would you invite to your dinner party?
Oprah, Meghan Markle, Coco Chanel, the human.
The human.
That's all I got right now.
Who made the biggest impact in your personal life or career-wise?
I think I always come back to the idea that my mom, by instilling this idea of entrepreneurship, of making me do everything on my own, as a kid, it really sucks when you have to do that, but it gives you skills that last a lifetime.
Yeah. Where can we find you outside of work?
Hanging with my kids on a bike ride or at the beach.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for coming on to the show today.
Thank you.
All right, that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Smart Venture Podcast. If you like it, please leave us a quick review and hit subscribe so you don't miss any tips from the experts. If you want to receive our updates, please leave your email at smartventurepod.com. If you want to connect with me, all my socials are at Grace Gong GG. Beside LinkedIn, it's just Grace Gong. I'd love to connect with you and let me know your thought about the show. Now you can also listen to Smart Venture Podcast on YouTube. Go to smartventurepod.com, click the YouTube link on the top banner. Don't forget to hit subscribe and smash the like button. See you next time.